Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and keeping you entertained, with what is going on right now in the UK and all these things that is happening. And we're going to be talking about a lot of these things, what is going on with the current affairs in the UK. And one of the things that I'll be talking about today, and, which is of a big urge right now, is scientists are urging the final push for Northern Ireland's reopening. That's right. That is something, that they want to do at the moment. And Northern Ireland want to open the borders up, and they're urging for that final push for Northern Ireland to reopen again. And, I'll also be talking about the parts, that need to trial for self-isolation support. Yeah, they're trying to install this new system. They're trying to implement this new system. And this is just one of the things, that they will be doing. And the main topic of today, though, for me right now, what we're going to start it off with the show is the vaccination of children should be actually considered. Yeah, the UK has finally spoken on that. And this is something that they want to address right now. And looking at it, Jeremy Hunt is talking about how we need to get our kids vaccinated. And in case you guys are wondering who this is, my name is Nick, and I'm keeping you company on Real Talk all the way until 6 p.m. rather. That's right. And if you guys have anything you want to say, or you guys have your opinions, or you want to talk to me, hey, hit me up on our numbers 07852 473 473. Those are the magic numbers. And also don't forget to check us out on our Instagram page. We're pretty big on Instagram, and we're big on Facebook and YouTube as well. We go live on all these amazing platforms, and make sure to check us out on those. And also we're on Twitter as well. So also reminding you guys, don't forget to download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. But with that being said, we are going to be diving right into it, with the topic at hand, and that is, COVID vaccinating and how children should actually start being considered now. This is what Jeremy Hunt has said, the former health secretary, and he said the government should definitely look into offering COVID vaccines to children over 12. Yeah, the Tory MP said they said all of these things, and it should be considered because children can spread the disease to older people even if they're at low risks themselves. And he added it was encouraging the United States had recently authorized the Pfizer jab for over 12s. So no decision has been made right now about vaccinating children in the UK. I mean, this is still a very tender topic. We're still waiting to make sure all of the adults first get their vaccines. And once they do, we can move forward with that. And hopefully that is something, that they can see to in the future. And talking about all these things, the Pfizer vaccine, though, is currently the most approved vaccine for use in over 16 years in the UK. Yeah, so any child that is above the age of 16. I'd like to say, almost adult kids in the UK can get this vaccine, and it's approved for the use of these children. So with the AstraZeneca and Moderna vaccines authorized only for children above the ages of 18. So we can see most probably we can see another spike for that once we go along. And this is something that they might adopt moving forward. They want to get, like in the US, they want to get children rather, over the ages of 12 to get their vaccine so they don't spread the disease. So like I said, I asked about all these things in Westminster, whether the government should reconsider and should consider jabs for over 12s. Mr. Hunt said vaccinating children is something we definitely need to look into. And he says, I'm sure we will, because they will transmit the disease across generations, even if they're not badly affected themselves. So I think it's encouraging the US has approved the use of the Pfizer vaccine for the over 12s, and I would expect something similar rather here too. So this is what he said on Monday. Mr. Hancock, responsible for the vaccines policy in England, said ministers wanted to be very careful and sensitive about whether and how we offer the vaccine to children, especially to our children. It's always going to be a sensitive topic. We are not, until we can make sure that this is, for right now, we can make sure that it's 100% safe. A lot of people are going to be skeptical, and they're not going to be quite on board with, getting the vaccine for their children, especially when it comes to matters like that. Because you got to remember, end of the day, like I said, even though the risks of the vaccine, getting a blood clot from the vaccine is pretty low, people are still not confident. I mean, the chances of you getting a blood clot is higher if you are a smoker in comparison to this. I mean, come on, let's be real. Looking at the statistics, it is to say that people are more likely to get a blood clot when they smoke in comparison to people who take the vaccine. Yeah, that is the way higher risks. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I've read a couple of these statistics online. It shows, all these, data that says the risks are there, but even then, the risks are still prevalent. People are still concerned about this. This is something that not a lot of people, like I said, will be on board with, and it's understandable why they are hesitant at the moment for their children to get it. I mean, even I would want my kid to get the vaccine if I know there is some kind of risk entailed to taking it. And it just shows, we still need to do a lot of testing when it comes to the vaccine, making sure, we have a bigger sample data to show that, okay, this is the amount of sample size, X amount of people, and X amount of, possible side effects for this vaccine. And if they can reduce that to the proper amount or to a certain threshold, well, then people will be more considerate about taking the vaccine, especially the people with children. So, all of these things, they were talking about. The Welsh minister, also Mark Drayford, said recently that it was likely the Welsh government would want to roll out jabs for children if licenses were granted. So as of yet, they're not approved for children below the ages of 16. So it just shows, ministers in different parts of the UK decide on these vaccine strategies and on the advice of the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization. So the JCVI, that's correct. So those in England are under a legal duty to implement the JCVI's recommendation for new vaccines so far as it's reasonably practiced. So, this is just another reason why they're supposed to take it. When you look at, other parts of the world, when you come down to Canada, they've also authorized the Pfizer jab for children between the ages of 12 to 15, with the province of Alberta already offering it to children over 12. So U.S. President Joe Biden has laid out the plans to begin coronavirus shots for 12 to 15 years old as soon as possible. And in Switzerland, also taking a look at Switzerland, well, some places began offering the vaccine appointments to 16-year-olds early in May. But the head of the WHO, or the World Health Organization, has been urging a lot of these rich countries as well to postpone plans to vaccinate children, recently calling for them to donate supplies for low-income countries instead. This is what they were trying to address, as they were moving on. They say, okay, there are a lot of countries now children who are going to get the vaccine. Their question is, if they get the vaccine, what is the point? They're not going to exhibit any kind of the symptoms. But, this is very arguable. At the same time, they are saying, hey, people from other countries, less fortunate countries that can't really support themselves, need the vaccines right now. And instead of giving it to children who already are safe, why not give it to them who need it the most? And this is just, some of the things that they were talking about and what the World Health Organization was talking about. And elsewhere, Mr. Hunt also went on to say simpler financial support would have been encouraged and more people with the coronavirus to self-isolate. And he continued on to say, the failure to get greater numbers of people to isolate quickly had been one of the biggest lessons of this pandemic. And in September, the government introduced a £500 support payment for people on low incomes and who were unable to work because they were self-isolating. That's right. So, however, it's been reported that 2/3 of those who applied for the payments had been turned down. So although the people did not have support, it doesn't seem like they've received it anytime soon. So Mr. Hunt was also asked about the appearance of Boris Johnson's ex-advisor Dominic Cummings before the Commons Health and Social Care Committee, which we chaired for next Wednesday. Well, Mr. Cummings has agreed to give evidence, to the committee as part of its inquiry into the government's handling of the pandemic. And Mr. Hunt also went on and continued say, that the occasion would not be a moment for the dirty washing of political laundry. And he added that what we want to do is to get to the bottom of what we did well and what we did not do well. And he also, continued to say that's unusual for a parliamentary inquiry to take evidence from someone who was actually in the room when the big decisions were made. So all of these things, they're talking about all of these issues, prevailing right now in the UK. And like I said, one of this is, how people are right now hesitant, I'd like to say, to get the children vaccinated, especially when it comes to the children below the ages of, over the ages of 12. I mean, it is a concern for parents, especially, they're still not quite on board with it, but the government still has an idea, and they want to push it. At the moment, they are not quite, stressing on it, but this is something that will inevitably rather take place. And yeah, this is something for the plan for the future, for the government to even decide on, and hopefully they do go through with it, because at the same time, we want to reach the path of removing all these lockdowns and getting through with the roadmap. Yeah, Boris Johnson also, he's promised that this is going to be an irreversible roadmap. The path to the roadmap is going to be irreversible. This is the path. We're going to make sure the country opens back to normalcy by the time the 21st of June occurs. So let's see, how it goes. Hopefully, definitely hoping for the better for this whole situation while it eases out. But let's see what happens and what's in store for us in the future. And with that, we are going to be taking a real quick break. Welcome back to the show. Is Relax with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all these things that is happening in the UK, and yeah, this is just some of the things, some of the interesting things that is going on, and yeah, one of that is. The first flight out of Scotland after travel restrictions has eased out. And yeah, the first direct international flight from Scotland to a green list country since the travel restrictions were relaxed has landed in Portugal. Yeah, this is something of a good news, actually. When you think about it, good news for people in Scotland. We're just one more step closer to nationwide release of this whole lockdown. So yeah, this is something that we're progressing as we go along. And in case you guys are wondering who this is, my name is Nick, and I'm keeping you guys company on Real Talk all the way till 6. So if you guys have anything you want to talk about, or you want to say, hey, hit me up on those numbers, 07852473473. That's right. And you can always check us out on our social media pages. And also don't forget to download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day and every day. And hey, with that, getting back to the topic at hand. Well, the topic at hand is that the first international flight from Scotland has finally landed to this green list country, and that is Portugal. So yeah, at 6 p.m. from Edinburgh to Faro was the first flight, since the UK's government new traffic light system came into effect. So people traveling to countries which appear on the green list will not need to quarantine on their return. So yeah, the Scottish government is still urging people not to travel internationally if you don't need to. And if you don't really need to do it, please don't do it. So those traveling, especially those traveling to these countries and all of that, or any of the countries, especially when it comes to the amber countries and the red list countries, well, they'll still have to be facing isolation when they return to a hotel or at home for at least 10 days after arriving back. So yeah, relaxing all of these gateways is something, that the UK right now is gradually getting into. It's getting into the groove of all these things. So there are about 120 passengers on the Edinburgh Faro flight, mostly holidaymakers, plus some Scots returning to their second homes in Portugal for the first time in years. So in almost a year. So yeah, some of them admitted that they were more anxious than on a previous trips, but said that after 14 months of travel restrictions, the trip was well deserved. And yeah, one holidaymaker even went on to say, I think with the weather we get here, it's always nice to get up and about for a bit of sunshine. And obviously with the restrictions, you've got to think hard about it, but it comes at the right time. So it will be good. And hopefully it will be good though. And yeah, a group of students booked their trip as a reward to themselves after a financial difficult year of studying, rather. So what they went on to say is, someone from this party went on to say, it's just going to be a relaxing getaway, and we're graduating this year. So we thought we'd go on to a nice little trip to Portugal for at least a few days. And I understand, schools don't start, people still go to schools. And I remember, when you go to college and all that, there's always going to be that excitement where you want to travel abroad, you want to travel internationally, just to get away from things at home. And yeah, this is just one of the things, to de-stress. But at the same time, you have to be, you have to be alert, you have to be cautious, and you have to stay safe is what I'm trying to say. So all these people, who do travel to these countries, they need to make sure, that they be safe. And even though the restaurants and all that indoor stuff is open, make sure, you try to avoid them as much as possible until the whole situation finally, eases out. So there's been a lot of excitement, like I said. It was all of these people are looking, happy, and yeah, they're glad, that this is something that they are able to do. So yeah, the traffic light system was introduced for Scotland, has been placed in England since the 17th of May. So yeah, its green list includes Portugal, Israel, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Brunei, Iceland, Gibraltar, the Falk Islands, Faroe Islands, South Georgia, and the Sandwich Islands, St. Helena, Tristan da Cunha, and Ascension Islands as well. So yeah, passenger locator form is necessary to plus pre-departure COVID testing, but no hotel quarantine or self-isolation is needed upon return. So if you come from these countries, well, let me tell you, the good news is you do not have to stay in quarantine. I mean, that is something, you can look forward to and be like, okay, finally something, the closest to normal we can get right now, especially with the pandemic going on across the world. This is the closest thing we can do right now. And, people are going to make ultimate benefit, make the use out of it, make the best out of this whole easing and international travel. And like I said, there will be other countries as well that they can travel to, like Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Brunei, Iceland. Just a couple of countries on that list where people can travel to. So despite the relaxation of this international travel restrictions, health experts remain concerned about the possibility of a spike in COVID cases if there is a rush to the departure gates. So if everyone lines up and proper the proper procedure where you stay social distance and you make sure you go in a queue, then there's nothing to worry about. But then people are going to be rushing in last moment into these departure gates, and that is where the likelihood of transmitting the disease, if anybody has it, is pretty high. So Dr. Gillian Evans, the head of health intelligence at the NHS Grampian, said that it's all about the pace of easing restrictions. And we're watching, a number of these cases starting to rise again in Scotland and the UK, and the potential of a third possible wave is what, the people are concerned about. And this is, just some of the things, that they are saying. And taking a look at all of that also, she said we're watching the cases and numbers are beginning to rise. And against that, we look at news about the effectiveness of the vaccination and 2 doses against the Indian variant, which is shortly to become the dominant variant in the UK. And what you went on to further say is what we need to do rather is have most of our population covered by 2 doses before people start thinking about their summer holidays. So sitting here in rain, you can understand how relaxing and attractive and seductive it is to think about your summer holidays. I mean, when you get down to it, people are going to be thinking about the fact, where when the weather is gloomy and it's raining outside, it's always gray, to be outside of the country and to travel all these other countries internationally. I mean, it does bring out a little warmth inside of you, especially when the summer holidays is coming and you get to travel internationally. So, it would be far better rather, is what she said, and far safer to do the cautious thing now and plan your summer holiday for next year. So First Minister John Sweeney said the Scottish government was trying to create pathways for essential travel. That's right. And, it's not just for holidaymakers as well. And he said people have to go to make their own choices, and they've got to make their own choices. And we do live in a free society, and we are trying to get back in some form of normality after a period of severe constraint. I mean, like I said, we were in that point, where everyone is stuck at home and they somewhat essentially lost their freedom. They're not able to go outside, do the things that they want to do. And it is difficult for a lot of them. And people are miserable. If you think about it, people are not happy about that whole lockdown thing. And now that it's easing out, people are going to take the best of it, take the most out of this whole situation. But at the same time, that causes, rises for problems as well, where people are going to be careless and people are not going to behave themselves, and people are, they stand the chance to transmit the disease if they do have it. So this is just, another reason why, they have to be very, very cautious. And, they're appealing to people, given the fragility of the situation that we are in the pandemic, to exercise due caution, take the steps which will minimize the risk of any circulation of the virus. Yeah, that's, what people and what Scotland's take on this whole situation is. And taking a look at all the other situation right now in the other part of the United Kingdom, we got Northern Ireland, and yes, scientists are pushing forth, they're pushing through with this whole, and they're saying, okay, it's time to get the lockdown out, and we gotta reopen the country again, is what they are planning for right now. But with the situation, they're saying one final push is required by the public to ensure Northern Ireland is reopening, and it's going to be a successful reopen. This is what a lot of the group of scientists have said. So the Independent Scientific Advocacy Group, or the ISAG, is a multidisciplinary group of scientists and academics and researchers. Essentially what they do is they're based in the UK, and this group is independent of the government. So they're not under the government control or the government's funding for that matter. So it said that people's actions could determine the future, especially for the hospitality sector, which has borne the brunt of the economic damage. So this is, they're saying right now, if we don't open up these avenues, especially with the hospitality and the hotel business, they are gonna be affected even longer and even worse. So Dr. Andrew Kunzman, an epidemiologist at Queen's University Belfast, said that the simplest of steps is that could make a big difference in the recovery of the roadmap, including continue to meet up outdoors to socialize when possible. So in its latest paper, which suggests various safety measures and was shared with local politicians and health representatives, the group of scientists proposed 6 actions. That's right, they proposed 6 kind of actions. So among them, the socializing outside, which is lower risk, and according to the group, will help to keep the number of coronavirus cases low until younger people are vaccinated. So this it suggested will help to make reopening sustainable. And the ISAG highlighted that the hospitality sector needed to be supported by the public as opening and as closing has it meant it's been mostly economically damaged. The hospitality sector, the whole nation, the whole world rather. And this needs to be allowed to recover. And one action that should be kept, which should help, is keeping the doors and windows open, which will keep premises ventilated. I mean, that is also pretty smart when you come down right to it. You have to keep your room doors, window doors, shop doors open so you can get more ventilations. Otherwise, what will happen is in the air, it's going to circulate. What's going to circulate is the same air we're all going to be breathing in that one enclosed space in an alcove, or it can be an enclosed space. This is what's going to happen. And when their air is not ventilated, where it's just circulating in one continuous room, the likelihood of you contracting the virus, well, it is significantly higher in comparison to those who are open and there's more ventilation. So according to recent advice by the World Health Organization, which recognized that the coronavirus particles can remain in the air, it is said ventilation allows a good airflow, which stops the virus from building indoors. So the chances of getting the virus indoors, if there is ventilation, well, it is lower, significantly lower in comparison to those who are outside, who's in an enclosed space. And installing a low-cost carbon dioxide monitor in areas with poor ventilation, according to the ISAG, could be another means to help clean the air. And these are just some of the things that they are talking about and they want to implement, especially moving forward with the situation. Over the past 14 months, the group has shared its paper with officials across a number of sectors. And using its members' expertise, it is recommended that areas with high incidence of COVID-19 should block polymerase chain reaction testing. So people, they say that who do get this, they have to go for these PCR tests. And identifying cases early and expanding tests to close contacts could make the difference. And they went on to say, people with very mild symptoms or symptoms that are not the classic for such as unexplained headaches or muscle aches should be encouraged to get tested at walk-up testing sites such as the ones at Ulster University Meji campus. And the fourth step recommended supporting workers to isolate. And this is, what is very important and cannot stress enough. You should try to isolate as much as possible. You shouldn't get workers, to go back to work and pretend like it's a normal day again. And Dr. Kuzman said that the key to Northern Ireland being able to open was keeping the number of coronavirus cases relatively low. However, he also said that those members of the public who are affected need to be supported, which will encourage them to self-isolate. So if these people are supported, especially when they're at home and when they're self-isolated, well, it's going to encourage them to stay at home. It's going to encourage them to, not to do anything dumb. And this is just, some of the things that they're saying. The ISAC went on to say, staff members ignoring symptoms can have a knock-on impact on business. So businesses should make staff aware that they will be supported to isolate if they need to. So this is just, another procedure that they want to bring up on and they want to highlight as well. And they say, okay, workers can go back to work, but you have to understand if they go back to work, most of them, they come back to work because they have to, they have no choice. So the people who do get this, who do have some sort of symptoms, they should be encouraged to self-isolate because end of the day, this is their livelihood. When they say encourage, people come to work because they need that money. It's very understandable. So what they're saying is you have to encourage your workers to work at home, stay isolated, so you can avoid preventing, the whole business to close down is what I'm trying to say. And more than 1 people in Northern Ireland right now have received a first dose of a COVID-19 vaccination. And the vaccination rollout is recognized as the main vehicle out of the pandemic. While Dr. Kunzman supported the current rollout, he said when stock allowed, vaccinations needed to be given to younger adults, particularly in those in higher risks areas. So the point of all of this is if you get people who are of younger adults, the likelihood, getting they need to get vaccinated. The likelihood, of them getting the disease may not be that high, but sometimes most of these children or these young adults don't realize they are carriers for this disease. So the only way to prevent them from spreading it, unknowingly spreading it rather, is for them to get vaccinated, is what they're saying. And they went on to say also, Dr. Kunzman also went on to say that all of these younger people may feel invincible, and vaccinations would reduce their risk of feeling awful for weeks or passing on the symptoms. And finally, the group is also urging the public to support local businesses by holidaying at home. And they're saying, even though you guys want to go outside, even though you want to travel internationally, try to keep it at home, close to home as much as possible, because until the situation is alleviated. And if not, otherwise, what is going to happen is it's just going to spread, and it's just going to cause even more problems, more complications, and possible more lockdowns or curfews. And this is something that, we want to avoid as a country. So yeah, this is just something that, the group is urging the public to do. And the benefits of stay cautioning, it said, lowers the risk of variants emerging and undermining the efforts of everyone over the past 14 months. So yeah, over the past 14 months, this is a struggle. If you don't follow these rules, if you feel like doing what you want to do, this is what is going to happen. What's going to happen is the country is going to suffer even longer, and it'll take us a longer time to finally get back to normal. So this is something we try to avoid. Make sure if you are listening to this, make sure you stay at home and you go out only when you are needed to, and where you're required to, to get your essential stuff, or for an emergency. Those are the times you should go out. I feel at this time, at least, if you want something contactless, the delivery is always there. And there's a lot of these, you can these food delivery services as well. If you want to order food, so make sure you stay safe and you stay indoors as much as possible for the time being. And with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Relax Radio. It's Relaks with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company. And yeah, we're talking about important things that is happening right now. And the UK finance sector is in the top 10 for carbon emissions. That's right. And in case you guys are wondering, yeah, if the UK did hold, if the UK is if the UK's biggest banks and investors were a country, well, they'd rank ninth in the world for the carbon emissions they are responsible for. I mean, those are pretty big words. And if you guys want to test that, hey, you can always feel free to let me know on our numbers. It is 07852-473-473. That's right. You can always feel free to hit me up. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts or comments. And also, don't forget, you can download our app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. So head on now down to these stores and make sure to download our app. And while you're there, also don't forget to check us out on social media. We're pretty big on Facebook and Instagram, and we have some amazing videos lined up on YouTube. So make sure to check those out, while you are there. And yeah, getting back to the topic at hand, we are talking about, how scientists are saying bank and investor were a country, well, we'll be ninth in a rank in the country for carbon emissions that we're responsible for. Then that's a striking conclusion, and it's a striking conclusion for a new analysis by Greenpeace, the Greenpeace and the WWF. And the study assessment, they assessed the emissions associated with global investments of the 15 British banks and 10 assessment managers. So these asset managers and a spokesperson for the UK financial institution said that they were committed to being net zero by 2050. That's right. Their plan is also to get everything down by 2050. And this is just, they want to get to that goal. And the goal is, like I said, to get the country down by 2050, because this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to cut down on the amount of carbon emission the whole world is doing. And for that, the UK is the prime example. We are hosting COP26 in Glasgow. So the net zero refers to the reduction of this whole carbon emission as much as possible, so that any remaining emissions are balanced out by absorbing an equivalent amount from the atmosphere through planting trees, for example. That is, one of the ways to do it, planting trees, taking care of these coral reefs, because if you look at it, a lot of these coral reefs as well contribute a very huge part when it plays to global warming. And the research led by South Pole, a specialist environmental analysis company, is an attempt to, at least a rough estimate of the world carbon footprint of the choice made by the giants of the British financial world. So yeah, these are just, some of them. And using data from 2019, it finds that they were responsible for a total of 805 million tons of greenhouse gases. So yeah, that's 1.8 times more than the UK as a whole emitted that year, and slightly more than Germany. And according to Greenpeace, This shows that the financial sector should be considered high carbon along with the oil and the gas industry, coal mining, aviation, and transport. And the estimates do not include emissions associated with insurance, underwriting, or property. So the real figure may be far higher than we expected. And this is just some of the things that they are going to be concerned about. And thinking about this, the executive director of the Greenpeace UK, John Salvan, described finance as the UK's dirty little secret. And yeah, banks and investors are responsible for more of these emissions than most nations, and the UK government is giving them a free pass, he said. Because also, although they are giving them a free pass, we have to understand also that these big, these banking finance, they are also responsible for the country's economy. And, he went on to say, how can we say we're leading the world on climate action while allowing financial institutions to blow billions into fossil fuel production every year? And the claim is almost laughable, is what he went on to say. And the chief executive of the WWF UK, Tanya Steele, called on the financial sector to have zero carbon transition plans that cover their investments all over the world. Because one of the biggest investments, what these finance companies and these big banks do, is they invest in a lot of these fossil fuels, as well as oil, petrol, diesel, and it just goes to show, they are right now one of the biggest emitters in the UK. And it's like, if it was, like I said, if it was a whole country for the world, well, the UK would be ranking at a number 9 if you take these banks and institutes. So it's, despite all these things, they're talking about trying to set a net zero to emissions without tackling the UK financial sector, is what they're saying is like, it's like sticking a plaster when the patient needs open heart surgery. And despite seeing ambitious commitments to tackle the climate emergency, our finance sector is still driving global investments towards the old destructive ways of doing business. And that are the ones, destroying our homes. So in response, a spokesperson for the UK finance has said, representing the banking and finance industry, did not challenge the findings of this new analysis. And instead, they went on to say, lenders are playing a leading role in the shift to net zero finance. So last month, the UK's 6 largest bank groups were among the founding members of the UN's new Net Zero Banking Alliance, and committing to the net zero emissions from their portfolios by 2050 or sooner, he added. So the industry will continue work with others to help mobilize capitals in a way that takes account of local community and environmental needs. And ahead of the COP26 climate summit, due to be held in Glasgow later this year, every sector of the economy is set to come under greater scrutiny and have its green credentials challenged. And this is, the COP26 is, what is going to happen, and what they are going to be focusing on. They're going to be focusing on a lot of these points, that these countries, and especially the UK and our financial sectors, and a lot of these sectors as well, they will be focusing on this, and how they want to get this now to move to the net zero plan. Like I said, all of this net zero plan is what we are gunning for right now. And taking a look at all of these things, it is no surprise, to see all this is going on right now. And the move to net zero inevitably means no more mining. So this is what they are saying. And this is the plan. Like I said, what the whole situation right now in the UK, and like I am saying, when every time I talk about it, right now we have to focus on climate change. We have to focus on making sure that we don't cause more to the spread, and the public will need to accept greater mining activities if the world is to meet the challenge of going green. So resource experts say the current supply of various metals and minerals cannot support a global economy producing net zero carbon emissions. Well, the extraction rates have to be raised. This is what the scientists have been urging, and if only in a short term. So one of the things is also, eventually larger scale recycling should be able to satisfy the demand for key commodities such as lithium. Yes, that is something that we are going to be looking forward to when it comes to converting and transitioning to the more greener path. And that with lithium, it's going to be involved in all of these electric cars as well. The demand is going to be high. So new mining initiatives are often met with resistance because of the negative impacts they can have on the wider environment and on health. And some activities have drawn particular ire because they've become associated with labor abuses. Professor Richard Harrington, And the colleagues believe an urgent conversation needs to get going on where and how the inevitable new extraction is practiced. And they went on to say the public are not in this space at the moment. I don't think they understand yet the full implications of the Green Revolution, the head of Earth Sciences at London's Natural History Museum said. And we are probably only talking about a short-term spike in mining, but we have to work quickly because we know if we don't cut carbon dioxide now, it will be a problem in the future. And this is something that we will have to tackle as a group, as a whole country. And if we don't do it now, what is going to happen is inevitably the whole country is going to face a disaster, and the world rather is going to face a disaster. So we need to make sure we take the measures we can right now. And governments around the world are busy setting targets to transform their economies so that they can no longer contribute to warming gases to the atmosphere, or more correctly, have a net zero contribution. And this will mean, phasing out the internal combustion engines and drastically increasing renewable energy technologies such as wind and solar technologies. So the UK, for instance, wants all new cars to go electric from 2030, but to switch Britain's 31.5 million petrol and diesel vehicles over to a battery electric fleet would take an estimated 207,000 tons of cobalt. That is a lot of cobalt right there. And that's 264,000 tons of lithium carbonate, 7,000 tons of neodymium and dysprosium. And there's going to be 2 million tons of copper. So if they are going to do something like this, if they're going to move forward with this, well, this is something that the government has to take action right now. They have to be mining all these things because, like I said, they want to transition even the petrol, the diesel vehicles into electric cars by the time 2030 hits. And government around the world are getting busy to transform their economies, and they no longer want to contribute to the warming gases to the atmosphere, or more correctly, have a net zero contribution. This is what a lot of these major countries, major players around the world are setting their eyes on right now. And this will mean phasing out of this whole internal combustion scenario. And the UK wants to, like I said, wants to transition to electric cars by 2030. That is the plan. The plan is to get everything back to 2030. We're going to hit that net zero emissions right here in the world, in the UK. So this amounts to, twice the current annual production of cobalt. When you think about, how much productions they have to be doing, how much mining they have to do, rather, and it's an entire year's world's production of neodymium. And this is something, that is crazy. We need a lot of these things, and replacing the estimated 1.4 billion internal combustion engine vehicles worldwide would need 40 times these quantities, and therefore, before the mineral requirements of all these wind turbines and solar farms are also considered. It's just, it's baffling. There's just too much to handle. And, Professor Harrington went on to say, I think by 2035, we'll have sorted out a good source of recycled metal, and we'll need to continue some mining, but hopefully by 2050, we'd have built a truly circular economy so that most, if not all, what we need can come from these metals that we've already mined and already being used in products and in technologies, is what he went on to say. So, how should the increased mining be done, and where should it be done? Well, these are not easy questions. These are questions that they have not really a solid answer for. And considering the rumpus presently about the extending mining to the seafloor, well, some car companies say they will not accept any product from the ocean because of the damage this might do to the marine environment. And at the moment, metals and minerals are often sourced in countries that are not the main consumer of those commodities. For instance, we got countries like in Africa, where there's a lot of mining going on, but they are not the biggest consumers of these commodities. It's other countries like the US, the UK, countries like this are more involved in situations like that. So examples also include graphite. 2/3 of the total world annual production comes from mines in China. A similar proportion of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, it shows that most of these countries, although they do a lot of these mining, but to keep up with the world requirement, it's not going to be easy. And Professor Harrington's group believes that European countries may wish to do the required mining closer to home, and this would at least give them the greater security of supply and control control over these aspects. And when it comes down to waste, worker exploitation, and this is just some of the examples of the global extraction industry and the things that they have to do. And this is why the mining is right now, the reputation of mining, if you look at it, is really, really tarnished. So commenting on all of this, Andrew Bloodworth from the British Geological Survey said he agreed with Professor Harrington's analysis, and he went on to say, and he rather remarked, and he said, perhaps the big issue is just the lead times. So it takes a decade or more for finding materials to actually mine the stuff. And if you think about it, we want to get this many tons, 1 million tons of cobalt. We want to get 700 tons of lithium, but thinking about it, 700,000 tons of this lithium is not an easy feat. It's like mining from one particular place all the time. You can't really get a lot of these resources. It is finite, and this is what the issue is at hand. And it takes a decade or so at least to find these materials. And the other thing that's crucial is that it isn't just about mines. It's about the whole supply chain. So even once you've mined your lithium, you've got to go through all the refining, all the chemical treatments, and to get to the point, where you are making batteries. So that also takes a process. It is a huge and laborious project. So these are things, that we also have to address if we want to get down to the net zero target. So Professor Harrington's analysis, published in the journal Nature Reviews material, is the first series of published papers, and he's talking about all these things that is going on with the mining and how we need to step up our mining game if we want to combat the net zero targets right now. If we want to combat the emissions that is going across the world and we want to reduce it, well, mining is also one of the ways that has to step up, and we have to level it up to make sure that we reduce the amount of carbon emissions. That's just another thing. That's a no-brainer. What a lot of these scientists are also saying, that we have to move. If we're going to move to net zero, well, inevitably that will mean that we do more mining. But the concern of the general public is, how is this going to affect us? How long can we do this? And will it affect us adverse? Will there be adverse effects to this? Is the major concern. I mean, hey, in case you guys have any thoughts or propositions, you can always hit me up and let me know on our numbers, how we can combat and get to the point of net zero emissions. The numbers are 07852-473-473. Feel free to, hit me up and let me know what your thoughts and comments are on that topic. But with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about things that is pressing right now. And looking at things in Scotland, they're saying cautious optimism despite rising COVID numbers. That's how the Scottish people are feeling. And Nicola Sturgeon has urged people not to lose heart despite the number of COVID-19 cases in the UK and how they're continuing to rise is what she's saying. And she is addressing all of these issues. And yeah, she's talking about how people shouldn't be discouraged just because the number of cases is rising doesn't mean, the whole country is going to go into another lockdown is what she's trying to assure people about. And when it comes to matters like that, it's understandable, how people are going to be nervous and they're going to be anxious about getting back outdoors. And then to find out, oh my God, so we have to go back in again. We have to stay indoors again. That's something that they don't want to do at the moment. So the First Minister said all these cases across the country had doubled in the past fortnight. And yeah, Glasgow remains level 3 at the moment. That's right, Glasgow is at that level 3 with the 7-day stage average of new infections rising from 112 per 100,000 people to nearly 139 since Friday. So yeah, Ms. Sturgeon also went on to say there had been a bump in the road out of lockdowns due to the new Indian variant. I mean, nobody expected this. Like I said, this is the case. When you think about it, nobody expected the whole pandemic to occur. Nobody expected, a lot of this thing to spread. This tiny virus originating from China to spread so, exponentially and spread across the world and across, the whole world to be plagued by something like this to cause it to shut down. And now we have another variant that came in. Nobody expected this as well. It's a bump in the road and lockdown due to this whole new Indian variant. That's right. This is something that is also being addressed. How they say, this is not something that we've expected for. We've not prepared for this something. So she went on to say that there were some positive signs that case numbers may be establishing in areas with outbreaks such as Glasgow and East Renfrewshire. So Renfrewshire is also having these issues and Glasgow as well. And Ms. Sturgeon said the vaccination program could be working to break the link between the rising number of cases and the serious illnesses. And that's saying this could mean tougher restrictions are no longer needed to control all of these outbreaks. And Ms. Sturgeon also, continued to say all these things where she said there was a rise in cases overall across Scotland. And with cases numbers having doubled, albeit, from a very low base over the past 16 days. And she said the percentage of tests coming back positive was creeping up too. But for that, doesn't mean people should lose heart is what she's saying. Don't be discouraged. And there are particular concerns about Glasgow at the moment, where the number of cases continue to rise despite the city remaining under harsher restrictions than the rest of the country. But Ms. Sturgeon, like I said it was important to recognize that the extensive public health efforts used are underway in Glasgow will take time to work through given the scale and complexity of the city. I mean, it's not something that is, it's not a magical cure overnight. Oh my God, something's going to happen overnight. Everyone's going to be okay. No, it's not going to work like that. This is something that'll take gradual time, although there's harsher restrictions in comparison to most of the country, most of Scotland, especially. So right now, Glasgow is at level 3 is, the issue. And she went on to say, in just the last 2 days or so, we think we've started to see signs that the case numbers in Glasgow are stabilizing. I mean, with the constant lockdowns and the harsher rules where people are not allowed to go out at the moment, or there's no nothing. The First Minister went on to say these overall cases was partly due to the easing of the restriction, giving the virus more opportunity to spread, added that new variants were another important factor. And that's just, a factor in all of these things. And And these are, just matters of what they are talking about. And yeah, when considering all of these things, it just goes to show, what is happening. And yeah, the first minister spoke about all these things, and she said the overall rise in these cases were partly due to the easing of these restrictions and giving the virus more opportunity to spread. Adding the new variants were another important factor. And Ms. Sturgeon said it was important to put the figures in context, with 97 patients in hospitals now compared to more than 2,000 at the peak of the second wave back in January. So January was a terrible, terrible time when you come down to think about it. All of these time in January, with the number of cases that we were having, was just enormous. And yeah, thinking about all of that and looking at all of that right now, the situation seems like it's getting better with comparison. I mean, 97 is better in comparison to 2000, and that was peaking the second wave back in January. So Ms. Sturgeon went on to say that the increasing cases and increasing number earlier that they've seen in the pandemic has led as night follows day to increase hospital admissions and deaths within 2 to 3 weeks. So while she said significant degree of caution is still needed and required, this situation may be changing thanks to the vaccine. So the vaccine right now is curbing the amount of cases in the country, and this is just shows another link, and it's breaking the link rather between number of cases of infections with the people getting ill and falling sick to the disease. And she said that they are continuing to monitor all of these things, and whether and what to do and what extent the vaccination should be, breaking that link between rising number of cases and the significantly rising cases of serious illness and death. And if it does proves to be the case, as we hope it will, we will hope our response to this virus can increasingly evolve as well. And she went on, to say, in short, that while we still care, what we need, what is needed, it might mean we don't have to react quite so aggressively with these tough restrictions. So although there is going to be a case like this, there might be a little bit of rising cases. It does not mean that we are going to be not going to be imposed harsher, stricter rules of lockdown or curfews, and we're going to make sure that we get through this together. And she said we will hope to make be able to rely on enhanced public health interventions like testing and vaccination and good public health practices on part of the public. So she says, hey, we are responsible as well. We have to make sure that we do the necessary steps and the necessary precautions that is required of us to make sure that we don't spread more of the virus. And this is just, another thing that Nicola Sturgeon is, trying to press on, and she's trying to encourage the people. So even though you do go outdoors, don't be discouraged, but at the same time, try to follow these practices. So we, as a public, we can do our service as well, and we can also play our part. And a decision on restrictions in Glasgow will be made later in the week, with Ms. Sturgeon saying this would be based not just on case numbers, but also hospital and intensive care admissions. And there's also been concerns about the numbers of people coming forward for vaccine appointments, with around half of those booked in at one mass vaccination center in Glasgow failing to turn up on the weekend. Yeah, a lot of people failed to turn up on the weekend to get their vaccines. And Ms. Sturgeon said that there would be more than one factor at play behind this, ranging from address details not being up to date, to younger people finding it harder to keep an appointment due to work. And yeah, these are just some of the concerns that they will be doing. But she stressed that our uptake rates are very high at the moment, and saying that this is a relative thing and we want to nip it in the bud. I mean, this is something that she said. And Scottish Labour leader has also urged the Scottish government to use every means necessary to get Glasgow out of lockdown, with leader Anas Sarwar calling for urgent action now. And he said that we can't have Scotland's largest city and one of the major economic engines of the country stuck in perpetual lockdown. I mean, and he says also, to be frank, so far has been all these COVID restrictions have been timid, and the communications have been poor, and the decision making has been inconsistent, and it's not been up to par. So Mr. Sarwar called for the government to seek help from the army to speed up the vaccination program, with Ms. Sturgeon replying that there will be no hesitation in doing that if it is going to be required. So the Scottish Green MSP Ross Greer also said the Scottish government should deploy local surge testing much quicker before these local outbreaks are well underway. And right now, like I said, the situation is kind of serious in Glasgow, they are still at level 3, and Glasgow is one of the biggest cities in Scotland. It just goes to show, it points out the fact that a state like that cannot be under lockdown right now. It cannot afford to be under lockdown, and as soon as possible, we have to make sure that we get out of this lockdown situation, and we make sure the number of cases drop down. And they went on to say, the Scottish Green MSP Ross Greer also went on to say that we need to take a place where you can rapidly deploy all of that capacity, go door to door in an area that looks like it's beginning to have an outbreak, and get that under control as soon and quick as possible. So Lib Dem leader Willie Rennie raised concerns about the take-up rate of the vaccine, saying many people in his constituency had missed out on appointments due to the clunky booking system. So he basically was blaming all of the booking system, and the Scottish Conservative called for the new health Secretary Hamza Yusuf to make cutting waiting times an urgent priority. And health spokesperson Annie Wells said, while there has rightly been a focus within our NHS on tackling COVID, the number of patients waiting for key diagnostic tests is extremely concerning. And the SNP's new health secretary must tackle these waiting times as a matter of urgency before they completely spiral out of control, is what she was trying to point out on, and focus on this whole point. So right now the key is to make sure that everyone is, they trying to get the Scottish government, make sure that they can get Glasgow out of this lockdown, out of this period situation. Because like I said, if the situation even gets worse, and God forbid that it gets worse and it goes on until November, we'll have to push back the COP26, and that's also going to be a setback for the UK. That's something we cannot afford at the moment. We've been having a lot of losses. This is the only win we need right now. So hopefully Glasgow can pull through and make sure the Scottish government can find an alternative about this and find different ways to implement and reduce the possible, transmission of the virus, the Indian variant, the COVID Indian variant right now. So yeah, this is something to be looking forward to as time goes by. But with that being said, we are going to be taking a short break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Relax Radio. It's Relaks with me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all these things that is going across the UK right now. And one of this is parts of England to trial self-isolation support. Yeah, that's right. That is a topic, that is pretty much being talked about right now. And it's gaining traction as well. And a lot of people right now are addressing this. And they want to start something like this in England only. So let's see how it goes with what is going on. And hey, in case you guys are wondering, my name is Nick, and I'm keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. And in case you have anything you want to say to me, hey, hit me up on those numbers. 07852-473-473. Those are the magic numbers. Feel free to hit me up and let me know what your thoughts are. And also, don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And also, don't forget to check us out on our Facebook and Instagram pages. And we're pretty much big on YouTube as well. So make sure you guys check that out. And getting back to the topic at hand, though, parts of England are to trial the self-isolation support and more ways of supporting people who self-isolate in areas with higher coronavirus infections. Rates are to be piloted in 9 parts of England, and there will be buddying services for people needing mental health support. So in case you are looking for someone you need to talk to or you need to vent, well, don't worry. This is what the UK government is planning to do, and they're trying to establish something like this. So the social care support and translation services will also be available, and this is all going to be an alternative accommodation for those in overcrowded homes. So if in case you do need somebody to talk to and you need a buddying service, well, this is one of the ways you can do it, and you can expect for this to happen. And it's hoped that these schemes will encourage more people to get tested and self-isolate if required. So the more people who do get this, and the more people who do get encouraged to do this, well, there's going to be an increase of testing and self-isolation. And this is very important right now, with the number of the people getting infected with the pandemic situation. So Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said this was vital in the fight against the COVID variants. And he went on to say that the variants have the potential to be a Trojan horse for our hard-won progress, and it is more vital than ever that we do what we can to show them the exit and following the rules and self-isolation when we are required to is, what he's trying to say. And this is, that it's very important as well. Health Secretary Matt Hancock did speak about that. And the areas that will receive funding from a 12 million pound pot for the pilots are Newham and Hackney in London, Yorkshire and Humber, Lancaster, Blackburn and Darwin, Blackpool, Greater Manchester, the Cheshire and Merseyside, the Royal Borough of Kingston, Peterborough, Finland, and South Holland, and the Somerset as well. Those are the places that will be getting this 12 million pound pot. So there will be language communication supports for those who do not speak English as their first language, and social care support, such as increasing the existing social care support for vulnerable adults. So there's a lot of this buddying system going on. This is something that the government wants to implement as soon as practical. And Health Secretary Matt Hancock went on to say, we recognize just how challenging this whole self-isolation is for many people, and these pilots will help us find the best way to support people and making it, making all of this essentially a big part of this whole thing. And, the social support, such as increasing the existing social care support for vulnerable adults. And this is something that is, pretty important at the moment. So, however, a lot of people in the pilot areas will not receive further financial support when self-isolating. And under current rules, a 500-pound grant has been made available in England to people on low incomes who have to self-isolate. Labour has been calling on the government to expand eligibility for this scheme. And, the question at hand, but these are just, things and topics that they want to talk about, as they're going on. And the government is already backing a pilot across the Greater Manchester region with a £2 million of funding to assess ways of helping people self-isolate. So this is just another thing, that they are trying to This includes support and engagement teams who work with households within 24 hours of a positive COVID test to develop a bespoke plan for self-isolation. So James Jameson, the chairman of the Local Governments Association, said rapidly targeting these local outbreaks was crucial to tackling the spread of the virus. So these pilot schemes will provide further insight into what works best in supporting those who test positive and their contracts to do the right thing and to protect themselves, their families, and their wide communities. And people who have tested positive for the coronavirus and those considered at risks of having been exposed to it must self-isolate. So this means that staying at home and it even to buy food, medicines, or other essentials, or for exercise. So this is something that they have to do right now. And with the whole buddying system that they are planning to move forward with, this is just a part of all of that. So in other developments, Spain has lifted its restrictions on travelers from the United Kingdom, taking effect on Monday. However, the country is on the government's amber list, with ministers saying people should not visit for holidays. So although they are at the amber list, you can travel to Spain, but it should be for important visits only, unless it's a family member who's sick or something like that. We try to keep it as safe as possible. So Northern Ireland is also lifting the ban on indoor socializing, following rules which had already changed in England, Scotland, and Wales. And among other changes, hospitality venues can serve customers indoors, and up to 6 people change it from 2 households can meet in homes again. So this is something people can be looking forward to. And on Sunday, the government announced that 60.6 million first and second vaccine doses have been administered since 8th of December. So it's good. These are good numbers if you think about it. A lot of people are coming forward. Like I said, there are still people who don't have enough faith in the vaccine as of yet, but they are coming forward to make sure that they themselves get vaccinated and their loved ones get vaccinated as well. And they're trying to promote this because what we want right now is to get out of the lockdown. And to do that, to get out of the lockdown, what we have to do is make sure that we go through with all of these regulations and guidelines. And the figure includes also 37.9 million people who've received a first dose. So 72% of the UK's adult population and 22.6 million have both 43%. So the number of second dose administered in the UK hit a daily record on Saturday, and that is 556,000. Yeah, that's right. That's a very big number if you consider the fact. So Dr. Jenny Harries, the chief executive of the UK's health secretary, went on to say all these things. She spoke about a lot of these matters at hand, how they needed to address this and how the government needed to address all of these things as well. And looking at all this, Jenny Harris also went on to say that the possibility of restrictions being eased on the 21st of June as planned under the government's roadmap out of lockdown was looking good. So there's good news right there. They are saying that so far it seems like we are able to get out of the lockdown situation, and it is looking good. But she urged the public to be cautious, even though the figures are good. You have to be more cautious to avoid another lockdown, warning that this new Indian variant has become the dominant strain in some parts of the country. So under the plans, from the 21st of June, nightclubs would be allowed to reopen. And restrictions on large events such as festivals would be lifted as well. So Professor Adam Finn, a member of the government's Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, said there might be an adjustment to the lifting of restrictions on this particular date. And he went on to say all these things, hopefully we can look for something like this, as we go along. And as the months go along, hopefully the lockdown will follow through until the 21st of June. And Boris Johnson is trying his best to keep his word at the moment and make sure, we get out of that whole lockdown situation by the time the 21st of June hits, by the time everyone, hopefully in the United Kingdom, will get their vaccinations. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back to Relax Radio. It's Relaks with me, Nick. And in case you guys are wondering, there was something very recently that happened, and we wanted to talk about it. Is the Belarus flights redirected after Roman Protasevich was arrested? Yeah, that's right. There was, this whole big scenario, and it caused such a big scene. And even the UK's government has asked us not to travel to that airspace, the Belarus airspace. So several European airlines have said that they will not fly over Belarus days after a dissident journalist was arrested on a flight diverted to Minsk. And it's just another, one of these aircrafts that did occur, that it happened to. It's another stage carrier to ban overflights. Neighboring Ukraine and Poland are stopping all flights to and from Belarus. And Western countries accuse Belarus of hijacking this plane, carrying journalist Roman Prostatovich on a Sunday. So the Greece-Lithuania flight was rerouted over a supposed bomb threat. Yeah, that's what they were saying. How there was the likelihood of a bomb happening, and boom, this is not what actually happened. What actually happened is they wanted to arrest this guy, this dissident journalist, and make sure that he was arrested. So Belarus authorities on Monday released a video of Mr. Bortrovich that appears to have been recorded under duress, and he was really a very, very stressed situation and a very highly charged situation, for that matter as well. And talking about all of that things, it's just terrible to be going through under something like this. And he faces, these charges related to his reporting of last August's disputed election and subsequent crackdown on mass opposition protests. And as said, he fears the death penalty after being placed on a terrorism list. I mean, for a journalist to come out and talk about something that is important, we should be having that rights as well, And it's just terrible, especially on the part of Belarus. So Belarus is the only European country that still executes its prisoners. So at a meeting in Brussels on Monday, the leaders of the 27 European Union member states called for the overflight ban and promised further economic sanctions. So on Tuesday, the Belarusian Transport Ministry released a transcript of a conversation said to be between the air traffic controller in Minsk and a pilot on the Sunday's flight. So according to the transcript, which has not been independently verified, Belarus suggested several times that the plane should land in Minsk on our recommendation. So this appeared to contradict earlier statements from the Belarusian authorities, and that said the decision to land was made independently by the pilots. What is happening in the air? Well, at the Brussels summit, EU leaders told the bloc's airlines not to fly over Belarus, and they were warned not to fly against their airspace due to concerns. And they've also asked member states to suspend operating permits for its national carrier, Belavia. So, Air France also had said it suspended all flights of Belarusian airspace until further notice. And a lot of Finnish airlines as well have also announced this ban. So Air France's Dutch subsidiary KLM, along with the German carrier Lufthansa and Scandinavia's SAS and others, announced similar suspensions on Monday. So Singaporean Airlines also said it would be rerouting flights to avoid Belarus. And this is, Belarus right now, the airspace is not the safest of places to go through. And meanwhile, Polish National Airlines LOT said it had suspended both overflights and flights to and from Minsk, and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that Ukrainian carriers were banned from flying over or into Belarus. And Belavia said it was suspending flights to the UK and France until the 30th of October. So Belarus, though not in the EU borders, 3 EU countries and many flights to and from Asia as well as within Europe use its airspace. So earlier on Tuesday, European Council President Charles Michel has said that he shared a map of the air traffic taken from the flight tracking websites, and in which there appear to be no planes in Belarusian airspace, and some flights, however, have continued throughout the day. So some 400 flights use this Belarusian airspace daily, and hundreds of these are by EU or UK carriers. So according to the European Air Traffic Agency, it's said that they've urged the airline concerned to reroute through nearby countries. And they went on to say, frighteningly, Lukashenko with sanctions is doomed to failure, declared one of the Russian newspapers was talking about all this. And then the only character analysis, he's cultivated the image of a thuggish hooligan, is what a lot of people are saying. It begs the question, though, can sanctions actually change a hooligan's behavior? Well, Previous attempts have failed, and European leaders clearly felt that they felt that the fake bomb scare, the diversion of this flight, 2 minutes, and the arrest of political opponent on board, they needed to send a strong message that such a brazen act was unacceptable. Hence the new sanction, and it's unclear though how effective they will be. So banning Belarusian airlines from flying over EU territories and calling on EU-based carriers to avoid Belarusian airspace is a financial blow to Minsk. So this went on to go on for just going to cause a lot of complications for Belarus. And Mr. Lukashenko will almost certainly use this as an excuse to say to those around him and to the Belarusian people, look, I told you so. The West is out to destroy Belarus, if not with bullets, then with sanctions. And he will use it to batten down the hatches even more tightly in the face of an alleged external enemy. So there might be a point where, around this, the leaders pause to consider where Belarus is heading, its isolation, the economic consequences of Mr. Lukashenko's policies, not to mention the brutality of the crackdown on his opponents. So as long as Moscow is backing him, Mr. Lukashenko will feel confident of riding things out. So what prompted all this flight ban? What caused all this? So Belarus sent a fighter jet to force this airline, which was deported from the Greek capital Athens and was bound for Vilnius in Lithuania, to land, claiming there was a bomb threat, and it touched down in the capital Minsk. And this happened on Sunday, actually. And the police then took Mr. Protasevich away from the plane's 126 passengers disembarked. The activist, who witnesses said was super scared, was arrested along with his girlfriend, Sofia Sapikega. So this is just another thing. The incident had drawn sharp condemnation from across the world, with full countries urging the immediate release of Mr. Protasevich and a full investigation. So Ms. Sapega's mother also said, the 23-year-old had been taken to a Minsk jail, adding that the last word she managed to write on her WhatsApp messaging account was, "Mommy, the accusations against her are unclear." And she said it went on to say, I don't know what they can charge her with for going on holiday with Roman Protasevich. Well, it's his life. What he does is exclusively his choice, she said. So Belarus said that the flight had been diverted because of a bomb threat from the Palestinian militant group Hamas. So they blamed it on Hamas immediately, but Hamas has denied any involvement. German leader Chancellor Angela Merkel said the Belarusian claim was completely implausible, and dozens of Belarusian officials, including President Alexander Lukashenko, are already under EU sanctions, including travel bans and asset freezes imposed in response to the repression on his opponents. So, like I said, the 66-year-old leader has cracked down on his dissenting voices since winning a disputed election last August. So many opposition figures have been arrested, while others have fled into exile. And the situation is not getting better, actually, when you think about it. It's terrible for a reporter to be arrested like that. And this particular journalist is a former editor of a company in he left Belarus back in 2019, and this is what happened. It's just crazy how he got arrested. And in the video clip released after his arrest, he said he was in good health and seemingly confessed crimes he had been charged with by the Belarusian state. But the activist, including the country's main opposition leader, criticized the video and suggested Mr. Protasevich was under pressure to admit wrongdoing. And his father also went on to say he fears his son may even be tortured. And that's something that is terrible for a lot of people. So it just goes to show, that he's really, really afraid. And it's crazy, what the situation with Belarus right now and their political powers and their disputes in the country. For them to be doing something like this is totally unacceptable. Think about it. When you think about it, for someone to just voice their opinion or voice, or as a matter of fact, report on the truth, and for them to get arrested for that is just terrible. And for this country, for Belarus to be even saying that it's something to do with a bomb is even more worse, because all you did was scare the passengers on board the plane as well, and that's not something that you should be doing actually at this moment and time and space. That's just very irresponsible on Belarus's part. So I don't really have no words to say what they are doing, and it's not really the smartest of decisions. Will sanctions help on this and make sure, will the sanctions help Belarus behave? Well, we're not really quite sure as of yet. So a lot of these European, like I said, European countries have banned Belarus' airspace. So not a lot of these flights and planes are not traveling through their airspace at this moment because of the sanctions imposed on them. So let's see, how it goes. We're not quite sure what the consequences of their actions are going to be like. But a lot of people and a lot of critics are also saying that Belarus can keep doing this because they have Russia's support. I mean, hey, let me know what you guys think on our numbers. You can always let me know, whether this is right or wrong. Hit me up on those numbers. It is 07852 473 473. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio, where we're going to be talking about all the real stuff that is happening in the UK and the current events. Well, the Prime Minister's burqa comments gave impressions of insensitivity. This topic right now that is going on and that's trending right now in the UK. And Boris Johnson's comments about women wearing the burqa has given an impression that Tories are insensitive to Muslim communities. And this is done by an independent review has said all this. The Prime Minister ordered a report in 2019 into how the party handles discrimination allegations, and it found anti-Muslim views were seen at local association and individual level. So it claims, of institutional racism were not borne by evidence of the way complaints were handled. Yeah, in case you guys also, have been going through something like this or you face something like this, always feel free to hit me up and let me know. 078-52-473-473. Those are the numbers, to call us and let us know, what you have been facing. If you have a story of your own to tell, hey, feel free to let me know, on those numbers. You can always WhatsApp us. And also don't forget to check us out on our social media. It is www.relaxradio.net. You can check us out on our website. We got some amazing stuff right there. And also don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, everything, you name it, we're on it. And just talking about all the racism right now that is going on in the UK. But when it comes to this institutional racism, they're talking about how Boris Johnson made comments that were sounded a little bit derogatory. So there is clear evidence that the Conservative Party's complaint system is in need of overhaul. And this is according to Professor Sowaran Singh, the independent review. So the report warned it should make for uncomfortable reading for the party. And in an assessment, Professor Singh said, for those unable or unwilling to read all of its 44,000 words, here's a summary. We found evidence of discrimination, and while the problem is not systemic, the party must act now to root it out. And it's a type of read, is what he's trying to say. And responding to the report, Conservative Party co-chair Amanda Milling apologized to anyone who's been hurt by discriminatory behavior of others or failed by our system. That's right. And she went on to say that the party accepted all the recommendations and would publish a plan to implement them in 6 weeks' time. And when it comes to issues like this is no small issue as well. When it comes to racism as well, in a time of 21st century where a lot of activists are fighting for their rights. It's saddening to see that there's still issues like this going on, and a lot of Islamophobia as well in the UK. And she also went on. Former Conservative Chancellor Sajid Javid said the report contained distressing examples of anti-Muslim sentiment, but insisted that Mr. Johnson was not Islamophobic and respects anyone from any background, any community. And he went on to say all of these things. So the former Conservative Chancellor did step up. So another former cabinet minister and long-standing critic of the party over Islamophobia, Baroness Sayeeda Warsi, said each section of the report reveals a deep and embedded issue of a party at best unable and at worst unwilling to deal with the issue of racism. So Labor Shadows are talking about Labor Shadows Equality Secretary Marcia de Cordovo said the report was a damning indictment of the discrimination life and rife in the Conservative Party, and it all goes up to the way of the Prime Minister. So she urged Mr. Johnson to make a full and proper apology for his burqa comments and to acknowledge the pain and hurt he caused in the Muslim community. So the Muslim Council of Britain also gave a guarded welcome to the report, but said it does not address the structural problem, the nature of Islamophobia in the party, or how racism has impacted many elements of its culture. So what is in this whole report is your question. The report was commissioned in December 2019 after accusations of Islamophobic behavior by some Conservative Party members and representatives. And it considered, cases including allegations against Zach Goldsmith's London mayoral campaign against Sadiq Khan in 2016 and comments made by Boris Johnson in 2018 when he wrote that women wearing burqas look like letterboxes or bank robbers. That is pretty defamatory and derogatory as well, if you think about it. So the review said, such cases give an impression of someone, of a party and leadership's insensitivity to Muslim communities. And speaking to the inquiry, Mr. Johnson said, I'm obviously sorry for any offense taken, and added he would not use some of the offending language from past writings right now. So concerning his 2016 London mayoral campaign, the report said Zach Goldsmith Now the Lord Goldsmith, he went on to say, accepts poor judgment in the way his campaign was conducted, but forcefully denies harboring any anti-Muslim sentiments or using such sentiments for political advantages. So the reports also found out from 2015 to 2020, the party's central database recorded 1,418 complaints. And this is all concerning 727 incidents of alleged discrimination, and two-thirds of all incidents reported related to allegations of anti-Muslim discrimination. So three-quarters of all these incidents recorded in the Conservatives complaint database involved social media activity. And there was a lot of social media, when it comes up to post, it could either be posts or, it could either be a Twitter tweet. It could be any of these things. So this is what added, to this complaint. And it added all of these incidents were recorded in this database. And most of it was related to social media. So sanctions were issued in 231 cases, with 50% resulting in a suspension and 29% an expulsion from the party. So no evidence that complaints related to Islam are treated differently from those related to other forms of discrimination. So judging by the extent of complaints and findings of misconduct by the party itself that relate to anti-Muslim words and conducts, anti-Muslim sentiment remains a problem within the party, is what the report was trying to address. So they say this is very damaging also to a party and alienates a significant section of society. So Singh reports said that conservatives should, within 6 weeks, publish a plan laying out how it intends, to tackle all the failings highlighted by this investigation. And it also recommends producing a code of conduct, and said at least one member of every party association should receive training on the complaints process. And responding to Professor Singh's report, the Equality and Human Rights Commission said it would assess the report and await the Conservative Party's response. I mean, this is not something that is little. When you try to alienate a whole section of a community or people or race of people, it doesn't matter who or what or where they're from, it's going to cause problems like this, and it's going to cause mistrust and more judgment from governing parties, governing bodies. The people they're going to lose their faith. A lot of people are going to have issues with regards to this. So the Conservative Party has been accused of they're failing to tackle Islamophobia within its ranks for a number of years. And in 2018, the then chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum, Muhammad Amin, accused his party of putting electoral concerns ahead of decisive actions on tackling Islamophobia. So the Conservatives' first female Muslim cabinet minister, Baroness Warsi, has also long decried her party's response to the issue, accusing it of turning a blind eye and becoming institutionally Islamophobic. So during the 2019 race to lead the Conservative Party, then Home Secretary Sajid Javid challenged all of his fellow contenders, including the eventual winner, Mr. Johnson, to hold an external investigation into the allegations. So these are just, some of the things that they were talking about, and how, Warsi, Baroness Warsi was also, talking about this particular issue, and how we have to address these issues, because at the same time, when your party has something like this, when a political party has something like this, and it's going to be anti-Muslim or anti-whatever, it could be anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, whatever it could be. At the same time, end of the day, it's going to cause problems, and it's going to cause a lot of detraction. But people are not going to be happy about it. There's going to be friction between the general public and governing bodies, because this is just the opinions of a certain number of people when they think about something like this. Because end of the day, the UK is the land of the free, where we all have the rights to do what we want, how we want. We can practice what we want to practice, as long as it doesn't harm the other person. That's very important. So for Prime Minister Johnson to be saying something like this is also it's disappointing to see that at a time like this, we have to be together, and there's supposed to be some kind of unity. We fail to achieve it due to problems like this. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a short break before we come back to the final stretch of the show. And with that, I'm going to leave you with something about us at Relaks Radio and what we are all about. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick. It's Relaks, and we're trying to keep it real 100% right here on a Real Talk, keeping it all the conversations going and talking about all the pressing matters right now in the UK and across the world, with what is going on. You guys can always call me up and let me know, if you have anything, any thoughts in your mind, or something you want to address, or you want to talk about something. Well, feel free to let me know, and I will get back to you guys. And yeah, if you guys want to call, the numbers are 07852 473 473. Those are the magical numbers. And also, don't forget, you can check us out on our social media pages. We are pretty big on Facebook and Instagram. And also, don't forget to check us out on Twitch as well. We have a lot of these things that we are talking about, a lot of topics you're talking about, whether it comes to positivity and all of that. We have other RPs as well. You guys can always check us out on our web pages as well. That is www.relaxradio.net. That's right. We're talking about all these things right now that is going on in the UK. And one of this is how the Royal Hospital in in Bolton, the Royal Bolton Hospital is taking urgent action over the coronavirus. So yeah, there has been a rising number of cases, and in case you guys are living under a rock and you don't know what I'm talking about, there has been a surge of cases in the Bolton area, that is in the Greater Manchester. Yeah, so this is one issue. And a hospital actually is the Royal Bolton Hospital has been taking urgent action over this virus. So the hospital in Bolton has said it's taking urgent action to manage a surge in patients with the COVID-19. So Royal Bolton Hospital said it had experienced one of the busiest days ever and urged people to attend A&E only if absolutely necessary. So Greater Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham said the government made a major communications error in not announcing the new COVID travel advice for the town. So they are also saying, it's because of this right now that the situation is getting bad, right, when it comes to the greater Bolton area. So it's just another problem, right there. And they want to talk about this, and they want to address all of these things, and all of these are just, it's just issues with that matter in that regard. And like I said, Bolton is just amongst the areas hardest hit by this Indian variant of the virus. That's right. So this virus right now is, cause for a problem right now. Exactly. If you check it, it's another roadblock in the way out of the road map. So yeah, this is another issue that the government right now has not foreseen, and because of this communications issue, they didn't advise about this whole COVID travel advice for the town. They have been hit the hardest. So yeah, the Bolton is just one of these places that has been hit. So the town recorded 451 cases per 100,000 people in the UK in the week, to the 20th of May, and this is the highest in England so far. And government advice has emerged, urging people to avoid traveling in and out of 8 areas hardest hit by the Indian COVID-19 variant, including Bolton. So the government right now is advising people not to travel to these particular areas, and especially Bolton right now is not looking at its greatest. So the Royal Hospital in Bolton said that they will also be placing an increased focus on the discharge to free bed space. So yeah, Deputy Chief Executive Andy Ennis said a number of patients were discharged overnight, but 41 patients with COVID remain on the wards, with 8 in critical care. So in Monday, the people who are attending with a range of problems, and staff are working very hard to ensure they receive all the care they need as quickly and efficiently as possible. And talking about these people in these hospitals with the coronavirus in Bolton, Manchester City Council leader Sir Richard Leese, who is also health and care lead for the Greater Manchester's Combined Authority, said the number of COVID patients at the Bolton area was still less than a third of what it was at the peak of the pandemic. And he also said that even though there is a high proportion of cases, that high proportion of cases is not translating into significant increase in hospitalization, and more importantly, it is not leading to more people in ICU. So he also said that, being admitted included people aged between 35 to 60, and although, some would have been eligible for 1 or 2 vaccinations, a bigger number of patients had only been recently become eligible for this vaccine. Jab is the matter, what they're saying. So Mr. Ennis said the hospital was taking urgent actions to ensure to ensure essentially that we can continue to manage this demand effectively, and going into bank holiday weekend and half term, which is always a busy time for the NHS, as they anticipate a lot of pressure continuing. And they went on to say, we urge the general public to continue to take all the necessary actions required to protect themselves and others, following the relevant national guidance, and to only attend our emergency department if absolutely necessary. So if in case you have to go to the hospital, if you're listening from Bolton, make sure you go when it's absolutely needed of you. When it's required of you, make sure you go. And if it's only something that you cannot avoid, well, make sure then that's the only time you should go to these hospitals. And this is just it should go when it's absolutely necessary. And with all the cases right now, we are trying to get down as much as low as possible. So speaking during a virtual press conference, Mr. Burnham said on ministers to clarify the coronavirus guidance. And he also said, that it would appear guidance was reissued on Friday, but he has amended it, and it would appear to put more emphasis around travel, hence the confusion that has been created. And nobody in our system was told about this change in the presentation of the guidance. And asked if the residents should cancel holidays. Well, Bolton Council leader David Greenlahal has said they should just behave sensibly. And and he went on to say, clearly over the last 24 hours, there has been a degree of confusion. But I am delighted to say that after a series of calls with senior officials from the government, Public Health England, and NHS colleagues as well, we are in a position to be able to say with assuredness that there is no added restrictions coming to Bolton, and that there is no local lockdown. The position in Bolton remains the same as it did at the time of the Prime Minister's announcement 10 days ago or so. So last week, surge testing was introduced into the town, and a new vaccine center opened for those working, living, or studying in the BL3 and BL4 postcode areas where the variant has been more prevalent. So, these are just some of the places that have been getting onto this. So let's see, what is going on. And also the first man to get the COVID jab, William Shakespeare, died of unrelated illness. So the guy who got the first vaccine, well, the second person in the world to get the Pfizer BioNTech jab has died of an unrelated illness. And that is really unfortunate right now for that to happen. And Bill Shakespeare, 81, received his first COVID vaccine in December at University Hospital, the Coventry, shortly after 91-year-old Margaret Keenan. So the Coventry Council, Jane Innes, a friend of Mr. Shakespeare, said he had died on Thursday, and added the best tribute to Bill is to have the jab. And this is, another thing, that is going on. And, it's really unfortunate for him to have passed away. The first person to actually get the second person rather in the world to get the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine, to pass away from unrelated illness. I mean, it is unfortunate. I hope he does rest in peace. And looking at all these things right now, there is a lot of issues, going on when it comes to the COVID situation. And countries are, especially the UK right now, what they're trying to do is that they are trying to combat this whole issue and the whole situation at the moment with all this whole Bolton situation as well, and the rising cases in Glasgow. It just goes to show, that the regions right now in England and the UK, essentially in the whole, is going through a massive shift in change. And there's a lot of this unexpectedness that has happened, and not a lot of people have expected, especially when it comes down to the variant, to suddenly pop out of nowhere like that, and cause such a widespread mass spread in the places. So Glasgow right now is at level 3 at the moment. So in case you guys are wondering to travel or not, make sure you keep it indoors and stay at home as much as possible. So looking at all the cases as well, even Wales right now, the cases though in Wales have had the lowest number of deaths, COVID-related deaths. So there were COVID deaths in only 4 local authorities in Wales, and the latest figure has shown all of this. So the number of deaths, including COVID, was 6 in the week up to the 14th of May. This is all according to the Office for National Statistics, or the ONS. So this is up from 5 registered in the previous week, but the figures in this period are the lowest we've seen since early September. And these are accounted for 9% of all the deaths. So yeah, that's just some things that is happening, and the trend has been for a steady decline and is 88% fewer COVID deaths than registered 2 months ago. So during the last week, up to the 14th of May, there were no added deaths in 18 out of the Wales local authority areas, including across the Aneurin, Bivan, the Cardiff and Wales and Hywel Dda and the Powys Health Board areas. So when broken down by local authority areas, there were 2 deaths in Swansea hospitals, 2 deaths in Bridgend, in a hospital and at a home, and also a hospital death involving a Flintshire residents, and another involving a Rhondda Chiffon Taff care home resident. So it just shows, that there's just these number of cases right now. The cases are not as much as we think in Wales. So the so-called excess deaths, which compared all registered deaths from all causes with previous years, were 28 deaths above the 5-year average after being normal for 10 successive weeks. So looking at the number of deaths, we would normally expect, to see at particular periods of a typical year is seen as a good measure of the pandemic. So a number of deaths from all causes in Wales rose up to 640 in the weekend ending for the 14th of May. So the ONS urged caution in this interpretation because the early May bank holiday may have affected registrations. That is, one of their concerns as well. And it just shows, that the number of cases actually is not as many as we'd like to think initially in Wales. In particular, right now with their situation going on right now, there's not been a lot of excess deaths. If you look at it when it comes to COVID-related deaths, it's not as much as the rest of the UK at the moment. So things are looking pretty good right now in Wales. So yeah, the number of deaths from Wales, like I said, rose to 640, and that was during the ending of the 14th of May, and a lot of them blamed it, and they don't want it to be misinterpreted, rather, that the early May bank holidays may have affected all these registrations. So all nations and regions of the UK saw above average deaths, with the West Midlands the highest proportion of excess deaths as well. So when looking across the course of the pandemic so far, there's 44,826 deaths from all causes in Wales. So this is, just the number of figures. And from those normal causes, the mentioning only the COVID-19 deaths on the certificates, only 7,878% mentioning the COVID-related deaths on their certificates. So this is just, the number of people who have been affected and in the Wales who have passed away from COVID-related deaths. So why do we look at both the ONS and the Public Health Wales figures? Well, the Public Health Wales gives a daily snapshot, of the death being reported to it by health boards. So this only includes deaths in hospitals and in some care homes, but it only counts people who have been tested positive for COVID. And currently there's an average of 1 death a day in Wales by this measure. So the ONS figures takes a few weeks to compile because they look at death certificates signed by doctors and registered by families. So yeah, this is as well as all hospitals and care home deaths. They include deaths in people's home, hospices, and other community settings. So doctors, include COVID, when they believe in their medical opinion it was suspected or confirmed and that it was contributory because of the death. So across England and Wales, COVID was the underlying cause of death in 71% of cases when it was mentioned on a death certificate in the latest week. So we can't say the death was due to COVID. And like I said, although Wales is having the lowest number of figures, it's still a significant amount of people passing away from COVID-related deaths and issues. So hopefully, these are some things that they can tackle along the way and going forward with this. This is something that can be addressed, as they go along. But, right now, the best thing to do is to keep safe and make sure, you follow all the necessary precautions and the guidelines. I mean, I don't know how many times I can stress this enough. Make sure you guys stay home and not try to, go out there when it's not needed, especially when it comes to travel and non-essential travel. Or if you want to go to party, say no. I just recommend to say no and make sure you stay at home as much as you can and avoid, all of these troubles. Because end of the day, if you don't follow through, what will happen is the whole roadmap out of lockdown will be delayed even further. And that's just not something, the country can afford right now, and not something the country needs at the moment. And we need to move forward from this. We need to press forward. And the only way to press forward is if we stay, if we follow the rules, if we follow the guidelines that have been imposed by us, by the government, I think we can, achieve all of that, and we can reach also the herd immunity that we've been targeting for, and that we have been aspiring to get ever since this whole situation was found out. But hey, that's just me. And in case you guys have anything to say about that, well, feel free to call me up. The numbers are 078-52-473-473. You can always call me up on those numbers, or WhatsApp me, drop me a text. Doesn't matter what you guys do. Hope you guys keep safe. And also don't forget to, download our app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, it is about that time of the day for me to head on out of here. But don't worry, I'll catch you guys again tomorrow, the same time, same place. And hey, this is Nick. My name is Nick, and I'm out of here. Peace and much love.